What's up, everybody? Cinephile Mike here. Today I'm joined by filmmaker Jesse Weglein to discuss the new animated short film Roar, which is having its world premiere at the Tribeca Festival, blending AI generated animation, music, and emotionally driven storytelling. This film follows a neurodivergent young girl navigating a new culture, isolation, and selective mutism after moving from Tokyo to San Francisco. Jesse, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure, definitely a pleasure to be here.
So, with that, Roar balances so much within a very short runtime the
Yeah.
neurodivergence, immigration, isolation, music, identity, but it all feels very centered through this emotional point of view. So, what was the original spark that made you realize that this was a story you wanted to tell?
That's a great question. So I think for us, it's a very personal story. It's loosely based on my wife, who is our executive producer, who happens to be a therapist, and her story of growing up in Japan and coming to San Francisco as a young girl. So there's elements that's very personal about what it felt like for her to be uprooted from a culture that was home and to come to a new place where she didn't speak the language, and how did that feel for her? And I think a lot of people can relate to that type of story and that type of event. And neurodivergence is within our family. We have individuals who are on the spectrum. So that aspect is definitely it feels very real for us telling the story. It never was, oh, what is this? Can I imagine what these characters feel? We really understand the story from this real personal point of view. Um, Telling a story in animation was important, because I feel like a lot of children and individuals, they don't have representation for complex characters who are on the spectrum, who have different neurodivergencies. And there's a plethora of animations that are amazing. And
Mhm.
it runs a whole gamut of antagonists and protagonists. But for individuals who are on the spectrum, there's still a voice. There's a vacancy of characters that represent them authentically. So that was really important, that we wanted to create something that really spoke to people of all backgrounds, all cultures, and give a spotlight to what it might feel like to have a condition where you are voiceless, but you have so much to say. This idea of wanting to roar and wanting to be heard when you have so much feelings about things and being unable to do so. So that was really this idea of this little girl, Tora, in Japanese means tiger. So this idea of having her be roarless. She doesn't have a roar, and she finds a way to communicate through her soundtrack.
And in that, I really responded to how the music became that emotional language for Torah. So, what were the conversations around building that musical identity and determining how the
Mhm.
soundtrack would emotionally guide the film?
Yes. So part of the film is also a love letter to San Francisco. So we live in San Francisco. I'm raising a family here, and having a celebration of what San Francisco represents, this very rich, melting pot of cultures and diversity and thoughts, and letting that be kind of a beacon of the film. And coming from Japan to this new place, so much is different. Different cultures, different voices, languages, from a kind of a homogeneous Japan to a very, vibrant, different kind of situation. For the girl Tora, it's completely out of her comfort zone. So her she really is kind of shrinking down in size. If you actually watch the film, there are moments where she's taller and she's shorter. That's very much on purpose, on her confidence, on moments where she's remembering Japan the most. She feels she's longing for her grandmother in Yokohama, and she's half the size. Versus later on, when she's getting more confident, she's able to do her own dancing. She's double the size again. So that was very much art driven. There's kind of an art direction that is building off of her confidence and her ability to communicate, without saying words.
And now, through your company, you've talked about combining emerging technology with deeply human storytelling. So,
Yeah.
as both a filmmaker and a co founder, what
Mhm.
conversations are most important to you when it comes to making sure that the emotional core of the work stays
Mhm.
at the front and center?
Yeah, absolutely. That is of the utmost importance. I spoke with Pete Docter and Frank Oz a couple months ago, and I asked them, "What are your thoughts on AI as directors now?" And Frank Oz said, any tool that you can use as a director to communicate your thoughts authentically to audiences has to be embraced, regardless if it's a paintbrush, pencil, or AI. And I thought that was really poignant. And I believe that's really true because AI, it becomes very slippery where it will start
Mhm.
to give you suggestions and it can do what it wants to do versus what you want to do.
Yep.
And we had to take deliberate steps to make sure that AI was really reined in. So it only did what we wanted it to do. And so I let it do a lot of the heavy lifting, similar to kind of a between frame animation. So I would give key poses, keyframe animations, and let it kind of articulate, the interpolation. And it didn't always do what I wanted. So there was a lot of back and forth and training it to understand the subtleties of what I was hoping to achieve. But yeah, I think having a respect for the artistry, for the authenticity of the director, of myself, the story I wanted to tell, and allowing technology to get us there without taking any weird left or right turns that I didn't want. So I think that was really one of the biggest challenges for the studio. Building AI into the pipeline from the ground up was really important. I knew that to make films in this traditional way is really hard. You need a huge studio, you need a lot of people, you need huge budgets. And how can we rethink this? How can we take the assumptions that are made and kind of flip them on their head using the newest technologies? So that was one of the proving points of the studio. What can we do with things that are either off the shelf or proprietary to make films more accessible to audiences and give directors and artists this incredible creative tool to then just leap way into production very, very fast. So, yeah, it's very exciting.
And as you continue developing this work, and congratulations, if I read correctly, this was your first directing project.
Yes, yes,
So
exactly.
congrats on that. So
Thank
as you
you.
continue developing projects as a writer, a director, and a creative leader,
Mhm.
what would you say was one best practice you learned working on Roar that you look forward to taking into your next project, and one
Yeah.
learning curve you want to try not to repeat?
I think two things. It's trusting your sounding board, your board of directors, people that you trust their opinion. I shared the content along the way with people I trust, and that feedback is essential because you can become so um, isolated and siloed in this world where you're doing all the heavy lifting. And if you wear all the hats of this production, you find yourself in this weird echo chamber and your creative the creative juices kind of stagnate and you become kind of caught up in your own internal evaluation. So sharing this with people you trust is really, really important. It's kind of the equivalent of like audience screening early on where studios would take a rough storyboard and show it to new eyes. So I like doing that because I get tremendous feedback from that kind of new look onto it. Um, so yeah, that was, I think, continuing to implement that as is a really important strategy because that is very, very important for making tough choices, really,
Mhm.
um, that otherwise you would not have to do. My producer is my wife, and she's incredible. She's such a great asset to the studio where she really keeps me focused and in line with making artistic decisions where I'll say, I really want 5 more shots to explore this. And she'll say, you don't have the budget for that, cut it down to two. And that back and forth, having that extra voice is really important. So yeah, I think that was something that we continue to do all of our films. We're using that. Challenges in technology, not controlling when technology shifts underneath you. I think that's the biggest thing that is very different from Pixar, where when you are creating content at Pixar, the technology is fairly stable. And Gen AI in the last couple of years, the advances are extraordinary. But if you're working on something for over a year, the quality changes. And you have to go back and decide, okay, do I need to redo half of the movie now? Because what I'm creating now cannot be recreated authentically with that previous version. So that's frustrating. Not
Yeah.
being controlling, when things are updated, the patches, the new models are in place. So that's something that's kind of inherent with using AI, and just understanding what its strengths are. It is really powerful in some things, and it's really bad at other things.
No.
And knowing what to lean on and what not to lean on has been really important. It's been a learning curve for me, but something that I've spent a few years, even at Pixar in the last 2 years, I was doing independent research into generative AI, and they're using AI now in all the major studios. So in different capacities, mind you. Sometimes it's for back end stuff, and some things it's like for concept development. But it's something that it's here for now, and I think we're still trying to figure out how it is going to be a viable option for telling stories.
It absolutely is. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
So, one last question because I know I have to let you go. When
Yeah.
audiences leave Roar, what is something you hope stays with them afterward?
Um, I hope that they really like this character. I hope that they want to see more from her. We're writing a treatment for a feature film based on this family. And I would love for them to be able to watch something that's really just 3.5 minutes and realize the complexity of the story is there,
Mhm.
and then being able to amplify that to a feature film to really be able to explore all of these options. What life was in Japan, what was life, on really seeing her character arc, fleshed out. So I would love for people to come away really enjoying the film, to like the characters, and to start a conversation, to make a dialogue with their friends and family about, you know, anyone in their community or their family that might be neurodivergent, and to giving them a unique voice. And hopefully, they will appreciate it.
Well said. Well, Jesse, thank you again for taking the time to chat with me today. Congratulations on the premiere of Roar.
Thank
It's
you.
really a very visually inventive, beautiful looking film. So, congratulations on that. For everyone watching, Roar will be screening as part of this year's Tribeca Festival. We'll include the screening information, how you can get tickets to see the short in the description below. As always, if you enjoyed this conversation, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming more filmmaker interviews like this, festival coverage, spoiler-free content. And as always, this is Cinephile Mike reminding you to take a break and watch something new. Jesse, have a great day.
Thank you.